welcome to our last session, final session of the day of the Disruption Forum Innovation Labs. I hope I am being live right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Moritz Spangenberg. I'm a client partner at Netguru. Now in our last session, I would like to talk with one of our speakers about the importance of UX, of customer experience, and talk about how to UX the desire. So we have the pleasure today to talk to Andrew, which would like to summon to the stage, and it's my utmost pleasure to introduce you to him. Andrew has studied design in the US as well as in Sweden. He has worked as a designer and as a producer and visual director. He has founded a company in Brooklyn, in New York, and also was responsible for the strategy of a renowned design consultancy. Now he's working for one of the most valuable brands in the world, which products are desired by all kinds of people around the globe, which is Cartier. So welcome again, Andrew.
Thank you. Hi, Moritz.
Good to have you here, Andrew. You are also sitting in New York currently?
Kind of. I'm in New York State. I'm in the mountains north of New York, a couple of hours.
Perfect. Cool. So Andrew, today we want to talk about the importance of customer experience for Cartier and for luxury brands in general. We want to talk a little bit about how to make it possible to embed clients in the innovation process. And also we do want to talk about how to translate those client demands back to business requirements. So you're responsible for all those kind of things in your position as the head of retail innovation lab at Cartier, and also overall then working on the customer experience and how to make sense for that from a business point of view. We'll talk about those things. To the audience, please let us know about your comments and questions in the chat on the side. We'll try to either incorporate them in our discussion, Andrew and myself, or save some time after our last discussed topics. So let us kick this off, Andrew. The importance of UX for Cartier and for luxury. So why is customer experience so important, and why does it seem to mean the world for Cartier? Why is it so important?
Well, I guess customer experience is, is for us not just retail. It's kind of all of the different touch points that we have with our clients that connect them to our product. And, we're in this very unique and wonderful position of being in a scenario where we can embrace a world where what's luxurious to every single person is something different. We're not talking here necessarily about fashion, but we're talking about the adornment of someone's body. But beyond that, it's kind of products that represent meaning to people. We're talking about the world of preciousness and ritual and memory and desire. And that's such a privilege to be able to connect to clients at those particular moments where they're looking for something to celebrate, or something to represent a celebration, I should say, or a relationship in their life, or an achievement, or a moment in time. And those things are so wonderful. They imbue the product with kind of totemic meaning that gives it more value to the person as the longer that time passes. And oftentimes, thankfully, as a heritage maison, there are products that connect one generation to the next. Yeah. And that's such a pleasure. So, that's so much is within the product itself, but then, we have this opportunity to be a puzzle piece that fits into clients' lives in a way that's much deeper. And, I think that's maybe the core of how we think about customer experience.
Would it be even fair to say, Andrew, that the customer experience is even almost as important as the product itself for Cartier?
Well, I'm biased because I'm coming from the retail part, but it's certainly very important, and it's a key kind of expression of creativity for the house. And it's not just the stores; it's the events that we have. It's the different ways of connecting to our clients, and we use kind of every channel that's available to us.
And can you tell us a little bit about, Andrew, how the approach of your lab works when your task was innovating the customer experience? That sounds very interesting, but at the same time, very broad and challenging. So where do you start with that?
Sure. Yeah, well, it is broad. There are so many different touch points, as I mentioned. We were the first lab at Cartier. We opened another retail lab in Shanghai to serve the Chinese clientele. There was a lot of thinking done actually before I joined Cartier 3 years ago about what would it mean for a brand like ours to have a lab, and specifically a lab in retail. What would we be trying to achieve with such a thing? And I think the approach that we've defined over those first few years is something that tends actually sometimes to make me kind of an outlier at innovation-focused events, because we've created a process that's not just about finding places for emerging technologies or finding the sort of solution-centric or accelerator kind of model for Cartier, but what we've done is instead create a design-focused approach where what we're doing here is to originate new kinds of ideas that come from the evaluation of different pain points across the business, which most of the time, I mean, most of the people I'm sure here who work in the same kinds of areas will attest to, are things that hit both on the client experience, but also on the back end operations of the business, things that are completely intertwined. And in our particular case, there's an incredibly strong focus on just the human side as well, which doesn't have to do with the objects and the technologies and the spaces that we have available, but it's about, the human relationships that we can build. And our sales associates are wonderful at building relationships with clients that are much more on the terms of friendship, and kind of genuine camaraderie. And so what does it mean to innovate within that space? That's the kind of question that we've had to tackle. At the same time, we do also have some of the, some of the same kinds of issues, I guess you would say, as any corporate environment. There's a very strong drive to go quickly to solutions. What we wanted to do is to create a design process that, first of all, doesn't kind of act as the lab like an internal agency inside the business, but one that introduces its own ideas that sort of move across different business verticals. But it's one also that's based on answering these big fundamental questions for the business. It's not just these kind of small pain points. What we want to do is to ask questions that pertain to lots of different parts of the business, answer those questions in the form of experience prototypes, and then actually get those out into the world in front of clients so that we can welcome them into the creative process and really find out what's meaningful for them. Maybe it's worth noting also that the lab was started in Brooklyn, in New York, and not in Paris. And it's a very kind of interesting gesture from a French maison like this. And that comes really, it comes really from an understanding that, as I said at the beginning of the call, what does luxury mean? What creates meaningful moments for people is something that really, it's firmly embedded in your humanity and in the culture that you live within. And so what's meaningful to someone in America? I mean, America itself is a huge, huge place with lots of different regional cultures. And so just to tackle those kinds of things is its own lifetime's worth of work. And then it's a different thing also for clients in China, clients in Japan, clients in Europe. And so the experiment here is to place a group like ours on the ground closer to this group of clients who are culturally different from ones in Europe, and see how we can work with the DNA of the Maison, but to create experiences that are relevant for the local clientele.
Okay, so you're putting retail innovation labs on your most significant regions, areas, and then trying to understand the local customer sentiment, the local customer behaviors, and trying to translate them into let's say superior customer experience for Cartier.
Indeed, and the individual touch points and surfaces and materials and little gestures might be different, but at the core, the core remains the same. And that's the kind of experimentation that we're going for.
And if you are in customer experience and also now increased in the online and offline world and now working in it, how do you measure if you have a good customer experience, a superior one or not? Do you just measure that if there will be a purchase, or how do you know basically if you do a good job in the customer experience?
Yeah, how interesting of a question is that? Because we're in a world where obviously the price points that we're talking about are quite high. It means that purchases aren't being made by our clients every single day.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that someone thinks about a purchase for a long, long time before they make the decision. So how do we measure the moments that we touch that client between the kind of the kernel of the idea and the time that a sale is made? It really can't just be about sales-based KPIs. We need to establish a practice around how we measure the success of kind of deepening client relationships. For us, that's really looked like a kind of design ethnography type of approach. When we bring something into one of the boutiques, we'll actually go there with a team of researchers who will observe what's going on. The sales associates become kind of secret agents in a way who can report back to us, in a consistent manner, what are the experiences that clients are having with regard to a certain kind of experience. And then from all of that research, from client interviews, from interviewing the sales associates, from kind of hard data analytics that we get from tech interfaces that people are working with, through the combination of all of those, we can start to get some insights about how clients are feeling. And when purchases result from that, obviously it's a wonderful kind of result of that process, but that's not the only metric for success, for sure.
Okay, that sounds like you would be investing more than others into the client relationship, more into, let's say, customer acquisition, building trust, creating a relationship, and which obviously does make a lot of sense because you are operating in a pretty higher price range within the Cartier products.
Yeah, indeed. And, we're also, as a manufacturer of precious goods, it's not possible for us to have every product that we make go into every boutique. Yeah. So, how do we connect a client with an item that they might desire if it's not physically there? Has been one of the most interesting questions for us because, showing an image on a screen is certainly one way, but does that really tap into the kind of soul of the piece and that makes it connect to the soul of the client? Not always. So it's something that we've needed to work on.
Here's an interesting question from the audience, Andrew. I also wanted to throw that question at you, actually, from Tommaso. Andrew, can you please give us some example of a project you developed at your lab in case it's possible to know? So can you share something that is able to be shareable, not top secret?
Certainly. Unfortunately, we can't share a lot of our work, but there's something public that I could share here. Cool. Maybe I can share my screen for about 30 seconds and show a quick video.
Work.
This is actually on that topic of how do we connect clients with products that aren't physically in the boutique.
Perfect. Let's see if we can make it work. Yes, something is coming up. Yes, we can see it. Maybe you can describe us what we see, Andrew.
What we're looking at here is a digital vitrine for high jewelry. This is the kind of ultimate category of our product, which is not able to be present in all boutiques. These are one-of-a-kind pieces. Got my screen share there. So these are one-of-a-kind pieces. These are pieces at the highest end of what we do. For those of you who are not familiar with high jewelry category, they're often designed and constructed around specific exceptional stones that get uncovered and found somewhere in the world. And so there's only one of each of those things in the world, and it it needs to kind of travel around until it finds the right person for the piece. And so in that situation, how can we help people to see those things, because the retail value is actually at a point where they need to travel by armored vehicle a lot of times. It's quite difficult to move them from place to place. And so as a result, it's hard for those to go to our smaller boutiques a lot of the time. And so from the client's perspective, if you go into a smaller boutique and you don't see those pieces, oftentimes people don't know that we make those things, but they're the kind of product that really express the creativity and the savoir-faire and the technique of the house. And if people aren't aware of it, then that's a part of us that they won't be able to connect with. And so I like that installation, because what that is obviously it's a piece of furniture. It has some technology embedded in it, but the technology there, it's using a Pepper's Ghost illusion. It's a reflection on glass.
Yeah.
That in itself is not a new innovation. That's a technique that was invented in the 19th century for Victorian spiritualist stage shows where people were talking to ghosts. But the point is not that it's the latest emerging technology. The point is that that's the right kind of way to show those pieces in our boutique. It's a quiet installation. It has beautiful resolution. It has the right material quality. We're talking materials like glass, which are already part of the design language of the interior of our stores.
Yeah.
It's ethereal. As you walk by, the image emerges onto the glass and then goes away again. And so it's really a very beautiful technique. And it doesn't matter really that that's not the latest thing. But we've also added some interesting details to that, which sort of reflect the Cartier craftsmanship approach, I guess, if we apply that to the world of embedded technologies, which is there's the image itself on the glass, but one thing that you couldn't really see in the video is that there's actually a little pico projector beneath the glass that bounces its beam across two mirrors and broadcasts the caustic reflections from those exceptional stones onto the surfaces surrounding the vitrine. And as the piece rotates, you see those reflections rotate, and it's a subtle thing. It's honestly something a lot of people, when they view it, they don't realize that they see it, but it gives that texture of reality, something that's a little bit extra for people to help experience the piece.
Yeah, amazing. I guess it's a very good example to embed old new technology and to have a cool online and offline customer experience, right? Also in the shop. I know from our pre-talks, Andrew, that we said, or you said, well, technology is a very important role, of course, but it's not the one and only role that basically decides over winning and losing your, let's say, battle and activities in innovation. What other factors do you determine to be very much needed and successful in terms of open external innovation involving clients, partnerships, ecosystems, and those kind of things?
Well, it's important to mention that we're not the only innovation-focused group at Cartier and at our parent company, Richemont. There are a lot of different kinds of innovation approaches within the Maison, and that's wonderful. We kind of form this web of different approaches that all mutually support one another. In our case, yes, there's the aspect of finding the right technique, I guess you could say, to solve the problem. And sometimes that's a technological technique and sometimes not. An example of kind of something on the complete opposite side of the spectrum is that I mentioned about the idea of innovating within the kind of space of just a human, not an object, not a piece of furniture, not a space. One program that we introduced last year is a program that we called Liaisons, which is about creating space for people within our world, within the boutiques and within corporate staff too, to establish these connections with creative, entrepreneurial, academic, and cultural communities outside our business. These are kind of worlds where, as you're part of a corporate entity, a lot of times the only connections that you're sort of officially allowed to have are commercial connections. When we're working with an outside group as a vendor or as a partner in an installation or so on. But when you have only a commercial relationship with someone, then you're subject to the strictures of that commercial relationship. So meaning there are certain things you do and do not talk about, certain ways someone can talk about the way they're working with you. Those are all fine. They're contractually necessary. But we also saw that there was a space where we could open up informal interaction so that we could build upon some of the interests that our people already come in with and kind of celebrate the different parts of the humans in our world and find ways that their involvement can strengthen these communities, and we can learn from those communities to bring things back into the world of our business. And again, that's a program that doesn't have a direct one-to-one relationship with increased sales in any particular area. But what it does is it allows the people in our world to become more comfortable being those parts of themselves with our clients and establishing those friendships, and being culturally aware. And that's something that then, we deepen the relationships, and we fit into our clients' lives in a different way.
Cool. And there are clients and also partners involved in that ecosystem. They're fueling back to your innovation strategy.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, this is maybe the most important aspect of the work that we do, is that we are involving clients in it.
Yeah.
This is actually, I mean, it's maybe something very unusual in the world of luxury, because we're creating prototypes. Sometimes those are things where there's only a part of the thing that exists, or it's software is being held together with duct tape. And normally we wouldn't want to put something in front of clients if we don't know all the answers to those things, or if we think something might go wrong. But if you look at it in a slightly different way, if you think of it as, instead, actually, we're welcoming our clients into that creative process, and we're asking them, what makes a meaningful experience for you? In a way, that's a different and very respectful relationship to have. And so that's the approach that we want to take. We always want to validate, if our assumptions are true, because in the end, that's how you can create a responsive ecosystem in our world. I'll get too far without validating it first.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Also leads to one of my next questions I wanted to ask you, and also kind of what from the audience is currently coming. I was curious about, Andrew, about is there like any kind of special mindsets, but also methods that you're using, because it's obviously a special segment, the high luxury segment, which you're operating in. So is there like a strong MVP mindset that you're currently establishing, or is that part of the role where you would say, well, maybe this industry is not that strongly innovative in the culture as others are those? And are there like any specific methods, techniques that you're using to do that validation that you talked about very early on?
I guess it's something different for every project, and again, I'm speaking here from the perspective of retail and not product. That's honestly something that we've needed to become more comfortable with ourselves, is the idea of what is an MVP, because this was kind of a new approach for us a few years ago. The project that I just saw you, the version of that installation that was featured in the film, that was hand built by some very expert model makers who created this object that looks like it was produced in the same manufacturing facility as the rest of our furniture, at a very high level of material finish and quality. Because our assumption at that time was that this thing really needed to look as though it was within the universe of our boutique in order to not skew the data in a way.
Yeah.
The object itself can't be distracting, because we need the content to be the thing that shines. But do we need to have that level of fit and finish for an MVP before it goes to a client at all? Probably not in all cases. There are moments where we've invited clients to the lab and shown them work that's very much more in progress, not something that is fit and ready to go out into the boutique world. And in a way, some of those experiences have been more satisfying, because it makes the project feel more like wet clay. The client feels that they can have an influence over the outcome when it doesn't feel totally fully baked. So I don't know that we've hit the right level in that yet. It's something that we need to continue to work on.
Yeah, I guess it's a continuous activity and continuous challenge to work on that, right? I think every industry has specific challenges on embedding that MVP mindset within the workforce, within the structures. I've seen one other interesting question from the audience, which I would like to throw at you, Andrew. So you told about showing the item on the screen. Is storytelling, when we talk about customer experience, and obviously an important thing referring to luxury goods? I guess it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's maybe the core thing that we're trying to deal with. So many of our products have embedded within them interesting stories, whether that's stories of clients in the past who maybe led very interesting lives and kind of imbued their spirit into the object, or a design story or a manufacturing story. You know, it's a wonderful privilege to be in a world where we have these incredible artisans who work with the business for their entire life, innovating on different kinds of techniques, inventing new techniques every day that get put into product. Telling those stories is such an important opportunity, and obviously our marketing department is really focused on that as well. One of our big focuses have been how can we incorporate stories more into retail, especially without being too didactic. You know, how can we have clients feel that they are actively part of those stories? And it's not just them, you know, reading the wall label. It's instead something that they feel naturally a part of. I think is one of the biggest challenges, and you know, something that gets reflected in all of our projects in different ways.
It's also a lot about creating emotions, right? For the products that you are selling, right? You're buying, as we said during the beginning, you're buying a desire, you're fulfilling your desire, you are following an emotion and a relationship, right?
Absolutely. I think one of the main misconceptions about Cartier is that we're intimidating. You know, we hear from clients sometimes that, you know, they feel that it's kind of, you know, they don't want to walk into our boutique in flip-flops, you know, it feels very formal. And that's really not who we are. You know, the thing is, we have all different kinds of clients from all walks of life, who are connected on those subjects of meaning and emotion. And, you know, that doesn't have to do with the kind of person that you are. It's something that can be embraced in every single person. So I think that's one of the main things that we're trying to address, and it's one of the things where that comes back to the Maison storytelling. We've existed for 175 years, and within that history, we've in a way got something for everyone. So the key is to connect people to the right stories in order for them to see themselves reflected in what's being told.
Yeah, amazing. Here's one question from Lucas. I also would be interested in it, Andrew. How does your team look like? You talked about the organizational structure that you have. You have those local labs now. What kind of roles, skills, competences are needed, like next to you, Andrew, to make that possible? What we're talking about, to innovate the customer experience for Cartier.
Sure. Well, our team is constructed, I guess, around 3 verticals. We have design, so we have industrial designers, graphic designers on staff, technology, so creative technologists and engineers, and strategy, so people who are more on the business side and helping to shepherd the kind of the end-to-end user experience design, and also how our projects fit into the business in a rational way. That's the kind of core setup. Those people are linked by a very talented production team who keep everyone on track. And then we also have assorted relationships with different kinds of people, with artists. We have someone on staff with a museum background, actually, who's leading the liaisons program. So really has that kind of cultural connection. And then every single project that we do also has a team assembled of people outside in the business who come from the different verticals that are relevant to the topic. So, you know, people from retail and retail operations, marketing, visual merchandising, network planning, you know, you name it. And
it's a very interdisciplinary team.
Indeed, yeah. And, you know, that's the point. It takes a lot of different perspectives to find the right solution.
Yeah. Yeah, and is that in Andrew? Is that then driven again like by central instance, or how do you keep then the different teams and basically labs, the regional ones, together again? That, I guess it's also a challenge around communication, alignment, and strategy and objectives.
Well, yeah. So I wouldn't say that the structure is dictated by anyone outside the lab. You know, the point is that each lab has its own process to serve the unique needs of its local clientele. So there are certainly lots of similarities, and we tackle certain kinds of projects, but the lab that we have in Shanghai is structured slightly differently and has a slightly different approach. And, you know, it's also something that will evolve over time. It's something that we need to, you know, always be challenging our assumptions and evolving the way the team is structured and how we work together to make the right solutions.
Cool. Yeah, great. Very insightful, Andrew, and we are actually also right on time. So thanks also for answering some of the questions from the audience. Has been very insightful. Let me take the time to thank you, Andrew, for being here with us today to talk about how to UX design at Cartier. So really insightful, really interesting how you guys are doing that. I wish you all the success with the next retail labs that you're ramping up and with further innovating on the customer experience. Thanks also to our audience for watching and seeing us. And yeah, thanks again to Andrew, and thanks to the audience, and have a nice evening, everyone.